Hey everybody, welcome back to FSi DFS, looking at the 8-game main slate here for Wednesday. First impression is that the best pitchers are facing off against the best offenses, and the worst pitchers on the board are facing off against the worst offenses. So it's going to be a real immovable object versus unstoppable force. Like, what's going to win out? I think it's going to be really intriguing. See where salary shakes out and everything. I do got the rankings on the sheet. We'll pull that up here in a couple minutes. But yeah, let's just kind of get started. Hit that subscribe button. Really does help us out at providing this content throughout the year. Jack Flaherty, number one pitcher on the board. I mean, he's clearly the best pitcher. He's got the highest strikeout upside. He's facing off against Seattle. We know they're a team that we target with high strikeout pitchers, or even low strikeout pitchers. We target them just because they strike out the most of any team in the entire league. So tough salary to swallow at 10.5K. Regardless, he's the number one pitcher on the board, especially in cash games. After that, Gilbert, Nola, Cortez, Fried. You can see they all have very difficult matchups against elite offenses in the league. So do I expect many of these guys to see much ownership really at all? No. I feel the ownership on all four of these guys, while they are respectable pitchers, is going to be significantly limited because people are probably going to be paying up for Flaherty, especially in cash games. You know, in GPP, maybe not. Maybe they go to cheaper pitchers. But in cash games especially, Flaherty's going to go number one. And look ahead here. The bats, the Yankees are going to be popular. The Royals are going to be popular. Those are two, more expensive bats. The Yankees much more expensive than Kansas City, but you're going to need to find the savings. So I really don't expect these four pitchers to see much ownership at all, not only because of salary, because of Flaherty, because of all that stuff, because they're all just in really tough matchups, and nobody's going to want to go for these guys. They'd probably rather just take a flyer on one of these cheaper pitchers who are facing off against a really bad offense and hoping that they get the advantage in that matchup rather than the bats do. So if I had a pick between all these guys, I might go Gilbert, then Nola, then Fried, then Cortez. But you can quickly see on the sheet that I'm just going to go Gilbert, Nola, Cortez for the high salary, just straight up and down. Gilbert, he just gives you such a nice, I'm going out there. I'm going to give you 20 DK points. I'm going to give you 6 to 7. I think I said this his last start. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to get you 6 to 7 innings. I'm going to get you 6 to 7 strikeouts, and that's going to be that. It's just what he does. Against the Dodgers, it's a little bit less likely that it's going to be occurring, but it's still possible that it does occur just because he has such a fantastic floor. Nola, he can get absolutely shelled in any given start, but he can also go out there and get you 30 DK points. He is one of those big boom bust pitchers that makes the other side, the bats, really intriguing in terms of GBP. So looking over here, we'll pull up the sheet here. It's kind of a little muddy there for a while. But Flaherty down to Cortez for these high salary. But I think it's just a massive gap between Flaherty and everybody else. Going into the mid tier, we're going to go with Pepio, Fried, Tyon, and then Myers. Myers almost over here in the fade category. But let's focus on these three here real quick. Fried and Talon. Okay, Fried's got that tough matchup against Philadelphia. Already talked about that. Tyon's facing off against a weak Detroit offense, and they are playing in Wrigley. It does look like the winds are going to be blowing in marginally, just ever so slightly. We're only talking, maybe 10 miles an hour. It's not 20-mile-an-hour winds blowing straight in. It's 10. That's still a decent enough number for it to impact the pitchers and the bats. So weak offense, winds blowing in, might have a little bit of interest in Tyon. I might move him over Fried here in my rankings as the day goes on, as I think about it a little bit more. I just like the strikeout upside a little bit more with Fried. I know he's in the tougher matchup, but he's just a far better pitcher than Tyon. If you take out the matchups and just compare 8.5 versus 8.4 for these two guys, I think it's pretty silly. But once you factor in the matchups, it definitely does make a lot more sense why the salaries are so close. So maybe I throw Tyon over Fried. They both have the same exact over-under strikeout prop. But I don't know. I trust Fried a little bit more. But I could see Tyon getting some run. Regardless, I'm going to go with Pepio facing off against Oakland over both of those guys. This guy was injured for a little bit over the past month. He did come back in his last start. Still got 80 pitches in his last start. So he's fully stretched out to go 90 pitches or even a little bit farther. He's a solid guy, gives you floor, gives you strikeout upside. It's like he does have a little bit of a ceiling towards him. I think that he probably is one of the more popular pitchers on the board. I think it's going to be going like Flaherty, and then maybe Pepio rounds in at like the second most ownership. Like, it really wouldn't shock me if that is the case. So throw both of these guys in here. You're looking at 3.9K remaining for the rest of your bats. I do think that this makes Seattle and Oakland the two biggest leverage stacks on the board because, I mean, while I think they see the most ownership, do we have a whole lot of confidence in them? Like, Flaherty's still going up against a solid offense, and Pepio is still a Tampa Bay pitcher who goes out there, maybe walks a couple guys, and efficiency isn't there. Next thing you know, he's at 80 pitches. It's the fourth inning. He's pitched okay, but Tampa Bay's like, nope, you're done, you're out of there. And so all that ownership got nuked, and then Oakland can face that weak Tampa Bay bullpen. So it's going to be really intriguing with that, but I think that Seattle and Oakland could be a nice leverage stacks for you there. Where were we? All right, Myers, kind of mentioned he's already almost in the fade category. And then over in the cheap tier, it's just a whole lot of but they're facing off against, bad offenses. So you got to have a little bit of interest there. I mean, I guess Gibson isn't facing off against a bad offense. Like, Milwaukee's still one of the top teams in the league in terms of the standings. But Gibson does bring you a strikeout rate that the other guys do not bring you. And that's one of the reasons why I did rank Gibson here at the top, just because he's one of the few pitchers down in this area that is, I have belief that he's capable of getting you 6 to 7 strikeouts. Nick Martinez, he's looked really well. I mean, he was a bullpen guy for a while, but they've really stretched him out, and he's looked really solid here as a starter. So pretty impressed with him. Facing off against Toronto. Toronto's a very low strikeout team, so I'm not really expecting the 6 to 7 strikeouts from him. Maybe 4 strikeouts in this matchup and everything, but I could see him seeing a little bit of ownership as well, just as like a cheap SP2. And then everybody else is just kind of like, they're there. They're taking up space on the board. I guess I could go with Spence over Martinez. Maybe I put Martinez over Spence. These 2-3 rankings in the mid and low and the cheap tier, I might flip flop here as the day goes on. Everybody else, fade. All right, so heading over into the bats, Kansas City far and away top implied run total on the board. Kansas City's implied run total is around 5.5. Nobody else is over 5. I think the Yankees were at like 4.7 or 4.8 when I looked. And then after the Yankees, it gets really big gap again, and then it's like 4.25 for everybody else. So Kansas City and the Yankees, number 1, number 2. Kansas City is a much better like point per dollar play than the Yankees are. Yes, the Yankees have a little bit of value. Like, I think that Torres is a phenomenal value option for the Yankees if you are going there. 3.8K, could be leading off in a nice lefty-righty matchup. Sure, you can throw them in there, but then you also have to remember that they still have Aaron Judge and Juan Soto at 6'5 and 6'9, and it just gets a bit ridiculous in terms of the salary. Because even if you go with one of these guys, you're looking at 3-4 remaining for not just like 1 or 2 guys. It's like the entire rest of your lineup. So it's going to be tough to squeeze those guys in. You can mix and match, go with Gleyber Torres, maybe even a one-off, or throw in like Stanton there if you really want to. Maybe they pitch around Judge and Soto, and then you get Stanton. So Torres and Stanton, maybe combination. We'll see. Let's throw them in here. Where'd Stanton go? 4.8. I haven't done any builds. I just want to see where the salary is going to be shaking out. But Kansas City on their side, facing off against Johnny Cueto. He's back. He's back. He's been in the minors forever. Didn't look too great in the minors, but he did get traded recently from one minor league team to another minor league team. And Honestly, he looked a little bit better. Still nothing to write home about. I still don't expect him to be doing too much, and I expect that Kansas City to be doing very well. They got their really strong left-handed bats. If you want to go with Massey over Torres, I could listen to that. But Torres does give you a little bit of that cheaper ownership. But you got guys like Melendez and Pasquantino and all these top left-handed bats that can really do some damage. Bobby Witt's there, but he's right in that Judge Soto category, so throwing him in there makes it a little bit tougher for the remainder of your bats. Still possible. 2.6K punt catcher. Next thing you know, you're looking at 3K for an outfielder and a third base. It's entirely possible. They're out there. Because like I said, the bad offenses who are like cheap already because they're bad offenses are facing off against the bad pitchers. So, there's going to be upside possibility with there, and value is going to be out there. So I really do like Kansas City. I mean, I'm not going off on a limb there. Vegas really likes Kansas City. They're the highest implied run total by 3/4 of a run for a very good reason. After them, Cincinnati facing off against Rodriguez and Toronto, like them. And then you get into like the big, strong bats that are facing off against tough pitchers. You got the Dodgers against Gilbert and Atlanta against Nola. I did Atlanta as my favorite GPP play just because, it's Aaron Nola. We know this by now. He's been doing it for years. Like, he can go out there and get you 30 DK points. He can also go out there and get you 2 DK points and give up 6 earned runs in 3 to 4 innings pitched. Like, it's just, there's no in between with him. So I do think that Atlanta could be really intriguing. I don't expect them to get much salary or much ownership at all, given the salaries that they do have. Like, they are kind of expensive, and if you're going to be paying this much in terms of the bats, people are just going to be flocking towards the Yankees or flocking over towards the Royals. So you got your lefties that you obviously are going to want to have interest in if you are going with a big Atlanta stack. It's going to be Harris, it's going to be Olsen, Kalenic. He got bumped down into the order of the lineup once Harris came back, but still, maybe you do a wraparound stack there. Ozuna. He's a righty on righty here, 5.7K, but he actually has the best numbers of any of the Atlanta bats against right-handed pitching this season. He's got an ISO around 300. He's got a WOBA over 400 against righties. Guy's absolutely dominant. So Ozuna, Olsen, Harris, Kalenic, maybe a wraparound stack with those guys could be really intriguing. Man, I still can't get over the Braves injuries. Strider, Riley, Harris was out forever. Acuna, oh my goodness, just can't believe the injuries they've been having. Cleveland facing off against Cortez. Here we go. There we go. Couldn't find them. Cleveland, a low strikeout team with high potential, playing in New York. Like that stadium in terms of the ability to hit some short home runs. And this team definitely has brought out more of the power this year than we've seen in years past. Part of that has to do with the changes that they made to the Cleveland Stadium. But still, regardless, this is a team that's been doing much better in terms of not just dinking and dunking singles all over the board and stealing bases, which was all they did. Now they finally have some power, so they finally have some pop to their bats. So really do like Cleveland as another upside because Cortez, while he is, up here and a higher salary pitcher and one of the more popular quote-unquote names, I just don't really trust him to do too much. So it gets to those, like I said, it gets to those bats that are really good offenses, but they're in tougher matchups. So I think they're just going to see some lower ownership because of that, but they're still elite offenses on the board. Going into the cheap category, Milwaukee's got a really high implied run total, so I could see a lot of people flocking there, but I'm actually going to go put the Angels here at the top, just from a purely strict point per dollar kind of view. One guy I do want to talk about is Cavadas here at 2K dirt bare minimum price. He's going to be in a nice lefty-righty matchup. He could potentially be batting in the cleanup spot at the 4. So Cavadas, what you need to know about him is this is a guy who's either going to strike out 4 times in a game or he's going to hit a home run. Or he's going to walk. That's all he does. He's going to strike out, he's going to walk, or he's going to hit a home run. And at 2K, I'm willing to take that risk, especially in a righty-lefty matchup, especially against a pitcher in Lorenzen who is only going to be getting you 2 to 4 strikeouts. Like, he has a very low strikeout rate. So I think that Nico Cavadas, 2K, if he is batting cleanup here in the 4th spot, I really, really like that value. As even if you just want to go like a punt, go for it. That means you'd lose out on Pasquantino on the other side if you do that in your like cash games. So do like him there at 2K. They just have so many other cheap guys. Shenuel, also first base eligible, kind of a bummer at 3.5. Where's Samara? He was like the main one that I really wanted to be talking about, just with how affordable he is. But I mean, like, just look at this. Everybody's affordable. Only 2 guys priced above 4K. Nobody above 4.2. Yeah, like it. All right, so I mean, hopefully that's kind of all I wanted to talk about. Hopefully this was able to guide you in the right direction on this slate. And again, it's the best pitchers facing off against the worst matchups, and the worst pitchers are in the best matchups, but they're the worst pitchers for a reason, and we don't really want to trust them. So definitely stick with Flaherty as your SP1. I think Pepio is going to be quite popular as an SP2, especially in cash. And I really don't expect much ownership at all with these pitchers. But I'd also, at the same time, really like the opposing bats for GPP. So good luck in your contest. As always, Mega Roller, nope. I think it's myself on board tomorrow, Thursday, for that slate. So we'll see you then.